Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. Now, last weekend, I participated in a meetup as a speaker, and we had some discussion about advertising for books. Now, I've talked about that in another podcast for the holidays, and that was the main focus of our discussion at this meetup. However, the question always comes up, should you use Facebook ads or Amazon ads to promote your books? And I've seen questions not only in that meetup, but on author forums where self-published authors are really concerned about their Facebook ad campaigns and whatnot. So let's break that down. Now, overall, in summary, I would say that Facebook ads are great for branding, for your author branding, as well as building your fans and followers. However, Amazon ads are really good for going for the sale. And the difference between the two is that in Facebook is a social platform. I mean, yeah, a lot of sales and stuff goes on, but truly it's a social platform. And people are not going to Facebook to see ads, even though they do, sort of by default. They want to go there to be social. So for me, advertising there just has not worked very well if I'm really promoting my books. And I think it may have worked back in the day. It may have worked years ago where there was just a more of a possibility for you to get a lot of traction with Facebook ads. And this happens with all the platforms. It starts out, the small guys start to build the platform for the Googles and Facebooks of the world, and then the big advertisers come in, and that's what we're also seeing on Amazon. And we'll talk a little bit about Amazon in a second. But the big problem with Facebook ads is that you can't put, with general Facebook ads where people have done very well, they use something called the Facebook Pixel, which means that it's a little snippet of code that's put on the landing pages, sales pages, where the product that's being advertised is sold, so that you can track the end-to-end sales. However, if you are selling your book on Amazon, you are not going to be able to install that Facebook Pixel on Amazon. So you will have no real idea whether your Facebook ads are actually doing sales. Now, how I did that to figure it out is I stopped all advertising except I really concentrated on one advertising campaign for one particular book that I was promoting. Not all my books, just one book. And I ran a Facebook campaigns, and then I watched to see if there was a bump in sales on Amazon, and there really wasn't. And again, I'm not going to know for sure because I don't have any way of tracking that. Amazon isn't going to say, hey, self-published author, we got that incoming link from Facebook, and thank you very much. They're not going to do that. So I think that's one of the biggest difficulties that I have with Facebook ads, is that you can't really tell what happens on Amazon. You can guess, you can kind of see how many clicks your ads get. Okay, fine, no problem. But in terms of the actual end-to-end sales tracking, you really can't. And so that's why I'm more preferential towards Amazon ads, because they are being shown where people are actually buying. And Amazon ads, the Amazon Marketing Services ads that you run for your Kindle books or whatever, and now I think you can do other things as well, or other publications as well, you can actually see in your advertising dashboard, how many clicks it got, if it resulted in a sale. So that's why I would rather have Amazon ads for my books. And one of the things that you have to be wary of, though, these days with Amazon ads. Now, over time, I have done fabulously with Amazon ads. Am I raking in tons and tons of cash? No. But in terms of my investment and the return on investment, it is really good. I mean, for the example, there were at some points I was putting in like $1 and getting $7 back. Now, I don't know where you can get that kind of return on investment almost anywhere. So, it was really, really good for a very long time. Then in early 2019, things started to change. First of all, the ad dashboard got tremendously better, which is great. And you could track things by day, like almost by day and by hour. I mean, you can really get some granular tracking for your Amazon advertising. And the reason that I think they did that is because just like with Google or Facebook or any of these advertising platforms, over time, the small guys, build up the platform, and then the big advertisers come in. And that's what we're seeing on Amazon. There are ads on Amazon for things that you don't buy on Amazon. Vehicles, insurance, home insurance, auto insurance, mortgage loans, things you're just not going to buy on Amazon. Maybe one day. The rate they're going, maybe one day, but just not now. So you're seeing a lot of and these are big advertisers. This isn't your local anybody. This is the big guys, the big auto manufacturers, the big insurance companies. Those are the ones who are now starting to advertise on Amazon, because Amazon isn't just a bookseller or a product seller. They're an advertising platform. And so over time, I'm seeing the results are starting to slip a little bit. And in fact, one of my results earlier this year was a disaster, because they made some changes to the types of ads you could buy as a self-published author. There were sponsored products, which are very similar to Google pay-per-click ads. You choose keywords, and you could have either auto target, let Amazon target, or you can do your own keyword choosing. I've always found that my own keyword choosing did better than the auto target, except in one case. So you kind of have to experiment in that case. But they got rid of the product display ads, and then they introduced something called the lock screen ad for Kindle books. Now, this shows up on a Kindle device when somebody opens up their device, and you think, hey, that sounds like a really good idea. Well, I tried it out, and you have to be willing to spend, I should say, a minimum of $100 on this campaign. So I launched it for one of my books, and I check my ad stats weekly, which I recommend you do as well. And I noticed that there was like $19 or almost $19 spent of the ad campaign money, and I got one sale for 99 cents. So I spent $19 to get $1 sale. That's not a good return on investment. Messed up my ad stats for a while. So yeah, I quit that campaign. So again, you have to experiment with it and be very conservative. Do not go for winning the ad bid and then losing the sale. That is just not a good way to spend your money, because you have to realize you're not going to make that much money on the sale of each individual book, unless you have like a super expensive book. But most self-published authors don't. I mean, maybe $15, maybe $10, maybe $20 at the outside. And you're just getting a percentage of that of royalties if you publish through KDP. So keep everything in perspective, don't overspend, and you can't scale this. This is the other thing that we talked about in the meetup is it's hard to scale. So if you spend $1 and you get, let's say you get $10 of sales back, which is great. You can't like spend $100 and get 100 times more sales. It just doesn't work like that. And this has been for every type of advertising I've observed over the years. There gets to a point, it doesn't go in a linear fashion up. It kind of goes slowly up, and then there's a drop-off point where you just can't get any more out of the campaign. So experiment, monitor weekly, and adjust as necessary, and don't try and win ad bids just because you think you're going to make more sales, because it doesn't always work like that. So I hope you found this helpful as you're starting to prepare your ad campaigns. And if you did, I would really appreciate it if you would go over to Apple Podcasts and give the Heidi Thorne Show a nice rating and review. And you can subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. I'm on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Stitcher, and Podbean, and AnyPod. And so I'm on all the major platforms, so please subscribe to the podcast. And if you like the video version better, that's fine too. You just have to subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel and make sure you click that you get notifications so that you know when a new video is available for viewing. I would appreciate it if you would share the Heidi Thorne Show with your friends on social media. My books, of course, are available on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. All you have to do is search for my name, Heidi Thorne, and my author page will come up, and you'll see all my editions of my books there. If you'd like to connect with me, my website is very simply HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode, and in the meantime, have a great day.